A warning ahead of our top story today. Some of the details may be disturbing to some viewers. A Winnipeg woman who hid the remains of her 6 infants in a rented storage locker has been sentenced to 8.5 years in prison minus time served. The judge said Andrea Geisbrech's moral culpability is extreme.
These were 6 separate offenses considered and contemplated by her over a lengthy period of years.
Geisbrech was convicted in February of 6 counts of concealing newborn remains. Medical experts testified the infants were at or near full term and were likely to have been born alive. The judge agreed, saying she was an unprecedented offender. The Crown had asked for an 11-year sentence. And joining us now from our Toronto studio is criminal defense lawyer Elliott Willschick. So, Elliott, tell us if you can, how did the judge determine this sentencing?
So what a judge looks at when they're looking at sentencing is, first of all, there's any minimums or maximums. So in this case, there's a maximum of 2 years per count. So you would take a look at that. You would take a look at her personal circumstances, her responsibility for the crimes, and you would take that all into account and try to fashion a sentence. So it seems that the judge had some leeway there in terms of understanding she is a mother. She doesn't want to be away from her kids for a while, and fashioned a sentence that was something that punished her, deterred people, but at the same time understood her circumstances.
How much of a role, Elliott, you touched on it, did the kids play into the judge's decision? I
think that certainly played a certain role because it's unusual that she had this many pregnancies over such a long period of time. But she does have 2 children who are in their teenage years, so it doesn't look as if she had a problem in being a murderer or something like that. So she does have some redeeming qualities.
You know, there's a lot of questions about this case, and one of the questions is just over whether these infants were dead or were born, rather, dead or alive. How does that factor in, and why is that significant from a legal perspective?
So that was very difficult for the Crown to prove and for them to tell. They had to actually bring in an expert to testify to say that the children probably were alive. The difficulty was that they were so decomposed, they weren't really able to tell if they were alive at the time. At best, they could tell that they were her children. So that's certainly something that would have actually elevated the counts, and she would have been on trial for homicide, perhaps second or first degree murder. So unfortunately, they weren't able to prove that and just had to proceed with what they had.
What's your reaction to all of this?
The sentence seems a little bit lower than one would think for a woman to have been pregnant that many times over that many years, to not have just 1, 2, but to have 6 children that she specifically tried to avoid reporting to the authorities. It's very disturbing, but the sentence, I think, takes into account her responsibility and her personal circumstances, and it was fashioned in a way to show the public we don't accept this.
How is that even possible? So 6 pregnancies, how do you hide that from the public, from your family, from your friends? Like they had nothing to work with in that regard?
That's what's really unusual. Yeah. She did have a husband, so as you would assume they saw each other at least, a few times a week, if not more. I don't know how she managed to do that.
Well, they definitely saw each other 6 times.
Yeah, that's that's exactly it. But you would think that maybe that someone was helping her in concealing it. It's all very unusual.
Could we see another branch of this come out with respect to the husband?
In terms of that, it would be too difficult to prove at this point if he knew anything. I think the case is done for now, and going forward, they'll have to perhaps adjust in the future.
All right. Criminal defense lawyer Elliott Willschick, thank you so much for your time, and thanks for coming in tonight.
Thank you very much.